Libya has two governments, two prime ministers, two armies, two central banks. One sits in Tripoli in the west, the other in Benghazi in the east. Libya sits on Africa's largest proven oil reserves, and it is the main departure point for migrants crossing to Europe. When Libya falls apart, the whole region feels it. To understand why Libya has two governments today, you have to understand what it had before. For 42 years, from 1969 to 2011, Libya was ruled by one man, Muammar Gaddafi.
Muammar Gaddafi.
Muammar al-Gaddafi.
Muammar Gaddafi.
Muammar Gaddafi.
Gaddafi didn't just run the country, he dismantled it. He abolished political parties, dissolved institutions, and replaced the state with a system of revolutionary committees loyal only to him. There was no army in the traditional sense, just armed groups tied to Gaddafi personally. In February 2011, inspired by the Arab Spring, Libyans rose up against Gaddafi. The uprising began in Benghazi in the east and spread fast. Gaddafi responded with brutal force, threatening to go house to house and show no mercy. The UN Security Council passed a resolution authorizing a no-fly zone. NATO launched airstrikes. By August 2011, rebel forces had taken Tripoli. Gaddafi fled. In October 2011, he was captured and killed by rebels near his hometown of Sirte. The war was over, but the question of who would rule Libya had barely begun. With Gaddafi gone, the militias that had fought to remove him didn't disarm. They became the power. Libya fractured along regional, tribal, and ideological lines. Hundreds of armed groups competed for territory, oil facilities, and government ministries. The National Transitional Council, the body meant to govern after Gaddafi, had no army, no police, and no way to impose order. Elections were held in 2012. A parliament formed, but it couldn't control the militias. By 2014, it had effectively lost control of the country. In 2014, Libya split formally into two. The internationally recognized government, backed by Islamist-leaning militias, held Tripoli in the west. A rival parliament, backed by a general named Khalifa Haftar and his Libyan National Army, established itself in the east, first in Tobruk, then in Benghazi. Haftar was a former Gaddafi general who had later worked with the CIA. He presented himself as the man who could restore order. Two governments, two parliaments, two armies, one country, and underneath it all, one oil supply that both sides wanted to control. In April 2019, Haftar launched a military offensive to take Tripoli. His forces advanced to the city's southern outskirts. Fighting raged for 14 months. Turkey intervened on the side of the Tripoli government, sending troops, drones, and Syrian fighters. The UAE, Egypt, and Russia backed Haftar with weapons, mercenaries, and air support. Libya became a proxy war. Foreign drones fought each other over Tripoli's suburbs. In June 2020, Haftar's offensive collapsed. His forces withdrew. The front line froze where it was. In October 2020, a UN-brokered ceasefire was signed. In early 2021, a new unity government was formed, led by Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh. The GNU stayed in Tripoli. The East rejected it. And Libya was back where it started, except now with a formal ceasefire line and two official governments. In 2026, Libya has two governments that have solidified into permanent fixtures. In the West, the GNU, the Government of National Unity, led by Dbeibeh and backed by Turkey and a patchwork of Tripoli militias. It is internationally recognized but militarily dependent. In the East, the GNS, the Government of National Stability, led by Prime Minister Osama Hamad. The GNS controls most of Libya's oil, the Sirte Basin, the Oil Crescent, the eastern export terminals. The GNU controls the capital and the international recognition. The GNS controls the money. In May 2025, the GNS escalated the standoff. It threatened to declare force majeure on oil fields and export terminals, a legal mechanism that would halt production and contracts. The threat was directed at the GNU, which depends on oil revenues routed through Tripoli to fund its government and pay the militias that protect it. Libya produces around 1.2 million barrels of oil per day. Control of that revenue is the real battle between the two governments. The oil weapon hasn't been fully used yet, but the threat alone sent a message. Libya is not just a civil conflict, it is a battleground for foreign powers. Turkey backs the GNU in Tripoli. It has troops on the ground, drones in the air, and a naval base agreement that gives it access to the Mediterranean. The UAE, Egypt and Russia back the GNS and Haftar in the east, with weapons, mercenaries and political support. France has historically backed Haftar as a counter to Islamist militias, even while officially supporting the UN-recognized government. Italy, which depends on Libya for gas and wants to stop migrant crossings, tries to work with both sides. No foreign power wants Libya unified if unification means losing their influence. The cost of division became catastrophically clear in September 2023. Storm Daniel struck northeastern Libya, flooding the city of Derna with devastating force. 2 dams collapsed. Entire neighborhoods were swept into the sea. More than 11,000 people died. It was one of the deadliest natural disasters in African history. The two rival governments couldn't coordinate. Aid was blocked or stolen. The militia factions that controlled Derna competed over relief funds. A disaster that unified governments handle badly. A divided country handled catastrophically. The UN has been trying to broker elections since 2021. The GNU refuses to hand power to a unified interim government before elections because it fears losing control of Tripoli and its revenue streams. The GNS refuses to accept any electoral framework that doesn't sideline Dbeibeh and guarantee Haftar a role in the post-election order. And the militias on both sides have no economic incentive to agree. In April 2024, the UN's own special envoy resigned, citing a lack of political will and good faith from all sides. There is one more reason the outside world tolerates Libya's dysfunction: migration. Libya is the main departure point for migrants and asylum seekers crossing the Mediterranean to Europe. Both the GNU and the GNS use this as leverage, offering to control crossings in exchange for money, recognition and diplomatic cover. Europe pays. So why does Libya still have 2 governments? Because the people with power, the militias, the foreign backers, the rival prime ministers, all benefit from the current arrangement. Reunification would mean someone loses, and no one is willing to be that someone. Libya has the oil to be a wealthy country, the coastline to be a prosperous one, and the history to be a stable one. Instead, it has 2 governments, dozens of militias, and a population that has been living in the consequences of one man's removal for 15 years. If you found this useful, subscribe. Geopolitics Decoded.